here again at J-Tech. Today we're going to talk about adjusting valves here on the C7 Cat. It's pretty simple. I'll explain it to you. But the first thing we got to do is remove this valve cover. So let's get started. All right, so before we get started, we got to make sure our number one cylinder here is at top dead center. This is a Cat C7, so in order to do that, right, you're going to have a buddy turn this motor over for you. You come down here and take a look. There's a little hole here to pin this motor. So you turn the crank there until these holes line up, and once this bolt falls in, that's going to tell you that your number one cylinder, number one piston's at top dead center, all right? So, you're going to need a couple things. You're going to need your feeler gauges. On this particular motor, for the intake valve, it's going to be 15 thousandths of an inch, and on the exhaust, it's going to be 25 thousandths. Every motor is going to be different, so you're going to have to look up the spec for your individual motor that you're doing here. You're also going to need probably an Allen and a couple wrenches. They may be different, they may be not, so just check the sizes before you get started. Okay, so there is kind of a method to the madness here. So when you're adjusting these valves, you always want to remember do intake, exhaust, intake, exhaust, intake, exhaust, right? Seems silly, but it'll help you remember. So when you get to your first cylinder here, you're always going to do intake first. This is always going to be the smaller one. And then the larger rocker arm is going to be your exhaust, right? So you're going to go intake, exhaust. And after that, you're going to move to every other cylinder until you get to number 6. So intake, exhaust on number 1. Intake on number 2. Exhaust on number 3. Intake on number 4. Exhaust on number 5. And then when you get to 6, you're going to turn the motor 360 degrees and repin the motor, and then do the same process back. Intake, exhaust. Intake on 5, exhaust on 4, intake on 3, exhaust on 2, and that's it. Pretty simple. It might help maybe to write it down so you have or print out a diagram of it. So pretty simple. So let's get into how we actually adjust these valves here. So on this particular C7, these are adjustment screws here, and this is the adjustment nut. So first thing you want to do is loosen them up, make sure you got a little bit of play. All right, so what we're going to do is our intake first. So on this motor, the intake is going to be 15 thousandths of an inch. So you're going to take your feeler gauge, and you're going to slide it on the top of the bridge here. All right, so you can see there's a lot of play here. So you're going to tighten this adjustment screw down a little bit until you get just a little drag. Finger tight, you're going to tighten that down, right? If you go too much and you can't move it, that's too far. If it's too loose and you can move it around freely, that's too much. You got to find that sweet spot. Right there. And then you're going to take your, on this intake, it's going to be a 16 millimeter. And you're going to tighten that down. Now, if I'd have done it right the first time, I'd have went ahead and put the wrench on here and did it this way. All right, now there's still a little bit of drag. Now that's perfect. All right, so we did our intake, now we move to the exhaust. We're gonna do the same thing, except you're gonna use a 25 thousandths for the exhaust. All right, we're gonna turn that screw a little bit. Let's see if we get some. Too much, too little, perfect. Some of these can be hair trigger now, so you got to be careful. All right, just a little bit of drag, that's perfect. So we've done the intake and the exhaust on our number 1 cylinder. Now I move to number 2. So if you remember, intake, exhaust, boom. So we're going to go to intake, right? Intake happens to be 16 millimeter. Let's go ahead and put this sucker on here. All right. Get our 15 thousandths, slide the feeler gauge on the bridge here. All right, she's a little tight. Let's loosen her up some. All right, let's do this here. The intake on number 2, slide that in there. Tighten her down. Too much, just back her off a hair. There we go, that's perfect. Tighten that nut there. So I'm making it look like it's a lot harder than it is. It's not really that hard. All right, ready? All right, so we got our 15 thousandths in there on the bridge on this intake, and she's tight. All right, done there. We move on. So intake, exhaust, intake, boom. Now we're to exhaust, right? Flip back to our 25 thousandths. Slide it under there. Get this guy out of here. Let's get some adjustment going. That's perfect. Perfect. And we can come back and torque these to the right spec later, but just get them. Perfect. All right, that was exhaust, and now we're on the intake. And you can see the pattern here, right? It's pretty self-explanatory. Little time consuming, but it's not bad. But it's really important to get these right. There we go. That's perfect. Give it a little turn here. Tighten her down. Perfect. Last one, an exhaust. Back to the 25. Too much. Perfect. So, all right, so at this point, we've adjusted 1 through 5. Now we've gotten to number 6, okay, our number 6 piston. What you're gonna do is unpin the motor like I showed you earlier. You're gonna turn that motor 360 degrees and repin it. What that's gonna do is bring your number 6 piston to top dead center. And you're gonna repeat the same process back to 1 that you started to 6. And by that I mean, you're gonna do intake exhaust on number 6, intake on number 5, exhaust on number 4, intake on number 3, exhaust on number 2. And you've already adjusted number 1 completely when we started, all right? Now that's it. Now there are some complications. Sometimes stuff gets in the way and it can be a little frustrating. So, you want to have the motor as clear as possible when you do it. But other than that, make sure you look up the proper spec for your motor before adjusting them so you know exactly what to tighten these valves down to. That's pretty much it. If you have any questions, shoot me a comment. I'll be happy to answer a question for you. And thanks for tuning in, guys. It's always a pleasure. Remember, you ain't cool unless you're chrome shining.